Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei. I'm so excited to paint with you today. Today we're going to be doing another page in our watercolor journals, and we're going to be doing a full border, something similar to this. Not this exact one. I have another one here. This has been a theme in my journal, but we're going to do our own version of that. Someone requested this from a shorter video that I did on one of these. So we're going to do a full length video. As you can see in my sketchbook, there's lots of fall imagery going on. Because 'tis the season. It's a great time of year. Okay, so we're gonna get started. Supplies and materials. I'm using a 6x9 watercolor sketchbook. This is the Bao brand, 100% cotton paper, 140-pound cold press. Turn on a little bit more light in here. And then also I have my Core watercolor paints, QOR by Golden, and just a couple of pens. So we're going to be using some ink today, so ink and wash. And also I have this size 6 silver black velvet brush. I may introduce another one later on, but I'll try to stick with one size. Any round brush you have will work. A medium size, somewhere between a 5 and a 10 would probably work just fine for you. Okay, so let's get started. So when planning out my border, I'm going to kind of visualize kind of where I want things to be. And basically, I'm going to do something substantial down here in the corner in a triangular shape. So it's going to be thickest in the middle and then kind of taper out to the end. And the same thing up here, but I might do something smaller, like a smaller triangular area up here. So for planning purposes, you want to start to visualize in your mind kind of where those things are going to be. So I'm going to put a large element down here, smaller elements up here, and then I'm going to fill in this border area with my ink as I did earlier on one of my other pieces, but we'll get to that. All right, so down here, some fall imagery. You can use a pencil if you want to draw some of these things out or plan some things out ahead of time, but you don't have to. You can just go right in and paint. But if you wanted to, so if we put, like maybe I would put a pumpkin down here, something like chunky and round, or a large sunflower type shape, something like that. We'll do a pumpkin. So I'm actually just going to map out a circle here. So something circular. I'm not going to draw the whole thing in. I'm just going to paint it in. And then from there, I'm going to do kind of trailing leaves and berries through here. Okay. And up here, I'm probably going to do more just large leaf shapes. Again, you don't have to draw this out. And then some type of berry leaves that trail out from there. And then we'll fill in the other areas. So this is kind of my anchor. Let's get started with some paint. So if we're going to do a pumpkin down here, let's get some orange. So I'm using my large full palette in Core paints, but I will stick with some basic colors. I have quinacridone magenta, and I'm going to use, I've forgotten what this yellow is. This is Nicolazzo yellow. This one is, oh, I'm going to have to look at my sheet. I have it here, my key. This is a Diarylide yellow, but a warm yellow will work just fine to make this beautiful orange. Add a little bit of water. I'm going to start a little lighter. And for your pumpkin, if you want it to be just straight on, we'll do just a straight on one, like more illustrative. We don't need it to be tilting towards us. I'm going to just do a big kind of lobe in the center here, chunky on the bottom, a little tapered at the top. And I'm going to leave some white spots. We'll come in with some darker color later. I definitely could have erased some of this pencil or made it a little lighter. But here is the start to our pumpkin. And with these borders, there's going to be a lot going on, so you don't have to be super detailed with all of your elements. The opposite of orange is blue. So if you ever find yourself wanting to bring your orange closer to like a brown color, you just add a little blue to it and it brings up that earth tone. They are complementary colors. It desaturates that vibrant color. So we're just going to put a little bit more while this is still wet or damp to get a nice soft blend. And then I'm going to go even more brown. So I'm going to just take a little more blue here. This is an ultramarine blue that I mixed in with my yellow and my magenta. You could also pop in a little Payne's gray. And we're going to give it a little stem. And then moving on from there, we'll definitely come back to this, and I'm definitely going to add some ink to this that will also enhance some of these sections. But I'm going back in again and emphasizing the areas. You can see I do still want a soft blend. I don't want super harsh lines, but you can see I'm emphasizing the areas next to where the rounded shape kind of curves away from you. And then the center is going to be lighter and brighter. All right, so there is our little pumpkin. We'll let that dry. You can always come back and give it some more attention later on. So let's go with some leaves. I'm gonna let that dry and I'm gonna move up here to my leaf, to some just leaves. And I'm gonna stick with this yellow and orange theme, so more diarrhea yellow. I'm actually going to take out some of this nickel azo yellow. And let's see. I'm going to come up here. And you can really play with, on something like this, these borders, you can play with colors. You could do things in realistic colors. You could keep it very simple and do 2 or 3 very similar colors. Or you can do lots of different colors. I'm going to introduce a number of other colors. We're going to do some reds as well as probably some purples, yellows, and greens. I'm going to take some of this brown I have here. Right, so we have some nice leaves up there. Let's do, I have, let's see, I have Payne's gray and this brown here. Let's mix these together to get a nice dark color. I'm going to create some like little branches out this way. We're going to do some red and orange berries. So let's see, I have an alizarin crimson here instead of just sticking with the magenta. Actually, I'm going to start with some yellow. We're just going to make a bunch of little circles. And again, kind of tapering off as we get down here, letting them be thicker and more like wide across this way up here. And then I'm going to take some of my red. I'll drop it into some, but not all. And same thing up top here. And I'm moving pretty quickly through these things. You do not have to move this quickly. Take your time with something like this that has lots of different elements in it. Finish a whole element and then take a break. Can leave a little white space. There we go. So we have some nice little berries. And our little pumpkin. So we're pretty well balanced. I'll put a few more things up here, but not too much more. I'll definitely go in with my ink to add some definition to a few things. Just gonna come back in here. A little more paint. There we go. Okay. So now let's move back down here and add a few more elements this way to complete this triangle, and then we're gonna fill in with our ink. So I think down here, I'm actually gonna add a flower, like a sunflower shape, maybe here or here. I'm gonna go pretty dark. Mix my reds and so we have some browns here. Basically, when you mix all your primaries together, you're gonna get a version of brown and grays. So, all right, so I just wanna show you, I'm gonna do a flower kind of facing on its side. So if the whole thing is kind of this disc shape, the center is going to be like right here, and you're not going to see all of it because some of these petals are going to be covering it up on that side. So I'm going to leave that in there just so you can kind of see. So that's the center. And we'll start this way. So these petals are going to be longer, and then as we find our way around, they're going to be shorter, and like you see, almost like the side of them. And I'm not too worried about that brown kind of getting into the yellow. I'm leaving it nice and loose. Going in with a darker yellow. And we'll let this dry and probably do another layer a little touch up, definitely with our ink later on. I'm gonna take some green here and just put it on the back of our flower. Basically, this is the back part that's holding the flower up. And we will add some green, I think, leaves in here. You know, I'm gonna put another flower right down here at the edge. But this one will be facing on, it's gonna go right off the page. I'm just gonna tuck it right in here. It's gonna kind of fall behind, but just fill this space at the bottom. And I'm just picking up different versions of yellows and oranges. And we can even go in. You know what makes it awesome brown? Sap green and magenta. Again, opposite on the color wheel. I go in with this darker brown just around the edges here. Same thing down here. There we go. All right, so we'll come back to those in a little bit. And let's do like a nice large kind of leaf structure up here, coming up this way. And we're gonna go really orange on this one. So I actually have a transparent pyrrole orange in here that's quite bright. I'm actually gonna mix it in with a little bit of my brown. There we go. Okay, transparent pyrrole orange. That is very bright. There we go. I also have a quinacridone gold here that's quite lovely and beautiful. All right, so what I'm gonna do, the one side first, big leaf structure kind of curving around a bit. And I'm going to, here, let's see, some of this quin gold and brown. I'm just going to drop in some darker hints of brown. Do the stem up the middle. Lovely. All right, so let's introduce another color, kind of a complementary color. So purple could definitely be a fall-ish color, and it is the complement to yellow. So sometimes when they're together, they make a really vibrant, they're just lovely together next to each other. They're very vibrant next to each other as long as you don't mix them together, because then they turn brown. So I'm just going to put in some sprays. Do I want to do purple, or do I want to keep this all yellow and orange? It's kind of lovely like this. Actually, I think I'm not going to do purple, so because it would really pump up the contrast and just throw a whole other color element in here. And I kind of like this subtle palette that we have going on here. I'm actually going to use some of this Nickel Azo yellow to do similar to what I was going to do with that, but make some like goldenrod kind of sprays here. And I'm just going to dabble these in and then add green. One up here like this, and then we're going to use our ink to kind of fill in the other areas. Let's get some of our sap green going here. So someone asked, they saw this palette and they were like, where did you get those pans? Like, their experience, I think, was mostly with the tiny little square pans. And they didn't understand how mine were so like wide and big. And basically, one, I did not buy them this way. These are, I bought an empty palette. So this palette, the whole thing, the whole metal part and the little plastic pans inside come empty. And then I had a set of tube core paints that I put in here and then let dry. And then this probably takes about half of a, what is it, 15, let me show you here. So it takes about half of a tube of these 11, this is 11 milliliters. So about half of this tube fills up one of these pans, and then I'll have another half to fill it up again. And they last a really long time, which is different than, where's my mini palette? I don't know where it went, but my core mini palette, or here, I'll show you a version of, this is a Winsor & Newton version, not core, but same idea. Oh, if I can get it open. There we go. So this is a Winsor & Newton, which has the little tiny square pans. And these come this way, already dried in here. So my core version, which, there it is, I was just painting with it, came in this little box here, like this. These paints are super, super duper pigmented. You need a very tiny little bit. These paints are also very pigmented compared to some other brands, but when I buy them already in pans, I find that I barely need to touch it to get so much paint and pigment out of it. These, they're super concentrated, but I do need to let the water sit on them for a moment or two before I really get the full effect of the paint. So depending on what brand you like, if you do start with a student grade, the Winsor & Newton Cotman sets or other student grade or store brand paints, that is perfectly fine, but just know they won't have as much pigment in them. They won't be as concentrated. It'll take more work and elbow grease to let the paint soften as the water sits on it, and also to get that highly concentrated pigment. You're gonna have to do multiple layers usually, and the paint just is different. So just know that when you're learning and practicing and getting used to your paints. I've painted with all different levels and versions of paint, and I've settled on Core. They just happen to be my favorite. I know some people don't like them. Other people, you know, you're very brand loyal to whatever brand you end up working with the most frequently. All right, so we are done with our paint, I think. You can always go back and add some more details, but now I'm going to come in with my ink and give this a little texture, a little structure. And yeah, we're gonna have a good time here. So I'm gonna start with my pumpkin. So my ink is a Lamy pen, which this is a fountain pen. It has replaceable cartridges in it. This is a micron pen, not replaceable cartridges, but you usually can get them in a pack or a set with multiple sizes. This is a 0.005, so very, very tiny, tiny tip. This one is a fine tip, but you'll see it. There's a lot more ink that comes out of this than this. So if you want multiple kind of thicknesses of line, you can get multiple of those. First, you do need to make sure everything is very dry before we start to add ink. So I'm going to use my dryer and just give it all a once over before I start adding ink. All right, nice and dry. So I'm going to come in, and with my bigger shapes and areas, I'm going to use this slightly thicker pen. I love how, especially on watercolor paper, if you have a very thin very thin tip on your ink, or it doesn't come out it will be very rough, which sometimes that's what you're going for. But if you're trying to get more of a smooth line, this pen is great. I'm actually using very light pressure right now so that I don't get a super, super smooth line. But the fact that I have more control over it with this pen to get a slightly thicker line is what I enjoy. Now this one is a fine tip. They also have ultra fine, which I don't have, but I definitely might invest in another tip. All right, we've outlined our pumpkin. I'm going to come in with, I'll just show you with this pen, and then I'm going to do everything with this and then come in with this. But I'm going to come in here with this, which is a much finer line, and add actual shading and texture. And this is super fine. I might even come in with one that's even a little bit bigger. And I'll show you up close. Hopefully you can even see that. Let's see how fine those lines are and jagged and ragged versus the heavier lines of the outline up there. Okay. So back into it. And actually I might use this. I want the sunflower petals to be a little more delicate, so I don't think I'm going to use the large tipped, the Lamy. You can see I'm moving quickly with my pen. I'm not outlining things perfectly. I'm using the pen to emphasize the shape, create some texture. And probably the same is going to go for these. I might not add any ink to them at all, but definitely to this leaf structure here. Go right up the center. I'm going to outline these leaves a couple times. I think the last video, the fall illustrations, I did a leaf structure like this, and once I went around it multiple times, I liked it much better. Not sticking completely to the edge, not being perfect. There we go. And in here, let's see, in the goldenrod, I think I'm just going to dapple in Kind of looks like ants now on my flowers. Maybe I won't do it for the rest of them. Maybe just the stems. Okay, and then I'm going to outline this as well, and then we're going to do some line work that is just going to be line work. We're not going to add any paint to it. Yeah, I'm going to give these some veining. And we'll do our berries. And now that I've done those, kind of given everything with watercolor the ink treatment that I want, I'm going to actually add elements now to connect these areas. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to create kind of a shaky line border. Maybe a dual line like this. I'm going to come up to this corner here and this way here. All right, so we've created the whole square, and now I'm going to add pure line elements just to kind of connect. So same thing that I did, same elements. I'm not introducing anything new, I don't think. I'm gonna do round circles, berries, leaves. And then, you know, I could even do something like the goldenrod that I did before, but all in ink. Just a scribble, scribble, scribble instead of a dot, dot, dot with my brush. I'm going to scribble, 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 dot, dot with my pen. So now we've kind of connected here. And I can even add some line items throughout. Maybe some different leaf shapes in here. Slightly different. And let's do berries over here. There we go. This is bothering me, this feeling slightly unbalanced corner. But I don't know what I would put down here to make it feel other than maybe the corner of the frame, but it doesn't quite go. But that's okay. Okay. So you can keep going, you can keep adding elements with your ink, but I find this to be so fun and satisfying. It can be different every time. You can add in little hidden gems. throughout. Oh, let's do just some of that goldenrod up here because that is a denser, darker, kind of more contrasty piece. And we love contrast. And we'll do a little bit up here. Again, squiggle, squiggle, dot, dot. Doesn't have to be crazy. All right, there we go. Fun fall border. So you got to see the short earlier last week. And this is your full length version. So feel free to play with elements and colors, all kinds of different things that you can introduce. I love the look of the open ink elements with the color elements and the all the texture that it brings. So let me know what you think. Are you a fan of ink and wash? Are you a true pure watercolorist who just likes watercolor? I'd love to know what you think. So go ahead and leave a comment. Don't forget to check out the description for links to supplies and materials. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and share with a friend. All right, y'all, happy painting, and I'll see you for next watercolor journal page very soon.